Okay. Well, that is the word, Pete. We are getting word from the control room. We are a go. That is a green light. Um, so let me take a deep breath here. I think before we get down and dirty and get into the nitty gritty of this, I think this is a time to pause. It's important we do a proper introduction. Obviously, we need to pay the bills to keep the lights on here. And to make all that happen, we're going to need to thank some people to help us keep the ship going. But a proper introduction before we pay the bills and thank all the sponsors. Let's do a proper introduction. My name is Mike, aka Munster Rc. Coming to you live on a Saturday night from the doghouse. We're going to put our game faces on here, get serious. You stumbled across the Rad Show. Couple of RC addicted dads, just doing our thing, bringing you the greatest hits of the week, the lighter side of RC, doing it our way, seeing the world of RC through our lens. It's pretty much that simple. But if you're asking yourself now, what is RC? This is when I tell you I'm going to personally apologize for the algorithm and for the suggestions that YouTube threw you, because if you're asking yourself now what RC stands for, scroll along. There's plenty of other useless nonsense to watch on YouTube. This show is not for you. This show is for the RC enthusiast. And now, if you're a repeat customer and you're coming back again for more, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the support and coming back to us. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. Thank you. But I am going to pause for a second. I need to ask you to subscribe. It's important. Get over there, subscribe to the show, hit that bell, set it for the notifications. But if you subscribe, hang on, I'll wait. Honestly, it's okay. Once you subscribe, we'll wait. It's important. All right, good. Now it's official and you've hit the subscribe and now you're official. The second we get to 500 subscribers, we're going to give something away from FMS. We talked about an FCX24, but I think we're going to do a smasher now. We get the 500 subscribers, we'll get you a 124 scale monster truck. But again, please get over there, subscribe, show your support for us. It means a lot. Seriously, let's shift gears a little bit. This is a tag team effort. I'm here with my buddy, the co-host. Like any good police show, we need a good cop, bad cop, like a Batman and Robin, the yin to the yang, Batman to my Robin, Jekyll and Hyde, the thorn in my side. This is the man, the co-host with the mostest, the one that makes us look professional and keeps the ship afloat week after week. Peter, how are you, sir?
Man, that's some introduction. I don't know how I'm going to take that, but yeah, man, good to be back. You know, very excited about our guest. I mean, a pioneer in the industry. Very excited. I'm so happy he's joining us. And, you know, like each week, we like to thank our sponsors, like Mike mentioned. And, you know, definitely check us out on Facebook. We launched the Rad Rc Show on Facebook, also Instagram. Follow us on Instagram. We have different platforms now for information and updates, past shows. Everything will be posted, contests. So definitely look us up on Instagram and Facebook. We also have the radshow@gmail.com. If you ever want to be on the show, send us an email. So we're trying out new avenues. So our sponsors, we'd like to thank Carryallrc, Treal Hobby, CowRc, Rebel RC, Crazy Crawler Foams, Powerhobby, 2.4 Designs, Crawler Cult RC, RC Misfits, Scale Rat, KNK Hradware, Venture RC, Wesmade, RC Prorack, FMS, Race Place Hobbies, Remote Control, Lando. And we'd like to do a special thank you to Real Sticky. If you saw Mike's post throughout the week, the Rad Rc Show now has swag. We have scaled banners. We got hats. We got shirts. He did a lot of work on the graphics. So thank you, Real Sticky. you know, for definitely checking. And there's the scale banners, which eventually will be shipping out, giving away at events and stuff. And Mike's going to put them in some backpacks. So definitely keep an eye out for those scale banners. I put mine up today, Mike, in the garage. It looks pretty cool. So thank you, Real Sticky, for doing all the graphic work. We appreciate that. And other than that, Mike, man, I've been excited all day for this guest. You know, definitely came across the company a couple of years back, and this guy's killing it. I mean, you know, for the people tuning in, you know this guy's work. I mean, you know, it's all over the place. You know, especially Element, and it just makes hands off best stuff I've seen, man. You know, clean, crisp files, and I was excited all day about this. So,
100%, Pete. I saw the post that you did earlier in the week, and we thought it would be fun to have a whole week to really promote and plug such an icon of the RC industry. And I saw you use the keyword in there, and I was kind of curious what you were going to actually say about him, but I think you used the word pioneer.
yeah.
And you know, icon and a pioneer means a lot. It's a guy that I envy wholeheartedly. I'll say it now. When I grow up, I want to be like James Knight, but I'm calling it now. Envy, respect. This is a guy that is a walking non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. You might hear that word even more. NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, military, a lot used on the RC world, anything happening behind the scenes. It basically means you keep your lips shut as you're working on things behind the scenes. This guy is a walking NDA, crossing bridges between Axial, Element, Vanquish. I mean, just go down the list. Proline. I mean, he's worked with so many different vendors over the years. Somebody that you just have to simply be in awe of and be like, wow, it's downright impressive. But I'm sure we're hopefully, Pete, you can man the computers on your end and keep an eye out for any questions that pop up. We want to make sure anything will get addressed. We have a handful of questions that we want to talk to the guy about. I know he's brought some props. I know he's brought promo codes. This man came to play. But it is no secret. This has all been timed around something very special, and that is the drop of the Element Bushido. Trying to schedule James to come on here. There was a lot of coordinating, and for people that do not know, logistically, it's tomorrow. It's in the future. So the one thing, if anyone asks like what tomorrow's lottery ticket numbers are, I don't think we can give that kind of information out, but we're literally talking to him in the future right now. So it's Sunday morning, his time, coming to us from all the way across the world, from Australia. It is so awesome. If I doze off a little bit and kind of geek out over his accent, you might have to poke me, Pete, to wake me back up, because I can sit and listen to his accent all day long.
Yeah, but before we go into bringing them on, we actually got somebody from Australia in the chat room. So thanks for joining us from Melbourne, Australia. RC Prorack's in the house. Our buddy Jeff, our newcomer from Connecticut, Size Matters, Nitro 531, Matt Thompson, and Tyler. So thank you guys for tuning in live. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear about, you know, projects and about the business and the future and collaboration and anything he's got to talk about.
And thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in live as we get more traction on this show, and we really lock in on this Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. This is really seems to be the home and the time slot we want to be in. Things pop up, things happen. there might even be a special edition show tomorrow night. If the Smashers end up dropping here tomorrow, we might have to pop on here for another hot minute and talk about them.
Yeah.
But I want to personally thank everyone and give you a request, if I could be so humble and ask something of everyone. You know, one, to subscribe, and please, number two, when we're done and we post this link on the Rad Show, share it. You know, we'll have the Facebook page, Instagram page up. A like, share, and a comment really breaks that Facebook algorithm, and will help us tap some new market or reach out to new people. You know, we're not doing this because we get paid. Honestly, we are here showing you the world of RC through our lens, period. We're doing this. Pete took time out of his day. Literally you have a gig going on right now, like a house party.
Yeah.
You stepped away from a house party and other obligations to do this, but we do it because we love it and we're having fun. And when you get great people like James Knight willing to sit down with a couple of hammerheads like ourselves for an hour and just shoot the breeze about RC stuff, heck. But I am hoping that this show does some good. I'm hoping that this show does bring the man behind the curtain out front and center a little bit and gives these people an opportunity, maybe even not to ask the question, but watch a show, listen to the questions we ask. Maybe you're going to learn a little something more about the design process and get some tech tips on what is the proper print angle, because I will be able to share with you some things that I've been doing all week long, and I've been hammering away on early production prototype Bushido parts, and to learn from the master like what he feels is sometimes that proper print angle. And that means a lot, because as you get layers and that printer's going, stability, making the part stronger. I think I'm talking now. Tyler has a printer now. Our good friends over at Size Matters, they got their printer. Learning, you know, which direction you want this thing to be laying on the bed makes all the difference for speed, making sure the print doesn't take, you know, 5 days to do, or sometimes over the process of speed, it is more important to make sure it's sturdy and strong, and it will snap at layers really, really easy. The first headrest that I did, I went to pull it off the bed and it broke into 4 pieces. I was like, well, that one didn't work. Let me try and re-angle it a different way and let it print off a different way. But I think that's what James will be able to share with us, what he thinks is best. And obviously, more and more people are getting away from these PLA 3D printers with the filament, and it's all the rage is in the resin right now. And I'm going to be very anxious to hear what James has to say versus resin versus PLA. But that's enough for me yapping. Pete, what do you think? Is it time to put the light bulb on for him?
Yeah, let's bring him on.
All right. And we might have another special guest pop in while James is here with us. All right, there he is.
Hey guys.
Hey James, good to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Quite the intro there. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, I meant every word of it. Honestly, when I grow up, I want to be like you. And we do envy your ability and gift and what you've been able to accomplish in the RC world. But what you do very uniquely is collaborate behind the scenes with a lot of different vendors. And that's a unique thing. I don't think we could go down a long list of names that work with the amount of different vendors that you do.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you know, I'm very fortunate. It's a great industry, great community. And for those of you who don't know, I spent 17 years in California. I now live in Australia, but a lot of the RC industry is there, and I got to meet many of them. And a lot of people wanted to collaborate, which was great. It's how I was able to grow the brand. You know, I grew up playing with RC cars and companies like Proline were always, I always looked up to the way they, would do aftermarket parts for other manufacturers, and that was sort of a model in my mind of the type of company I wanted to build. Where I love all manufacturers. Everyone has a unique take and a different way to do things, and I like playing with all of them, and I like to contribute and try and put my mark on whatever build I'm doing. And Knightcustoms kind of came out of that, being able to share that those designs and files with other people and let them do their thing.
And that really goes, you can see, I guess, the history that you have in this hobby. Your files that you design tells its own story. I mean, Tamiya is what I'm getting at. So when you talk about being here for a long time and using these when you were younger, it's really cool to be able to see you go back to Tamiya. And the desert, what was that one? The Fast Attack.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
If you look behind me, I've been playing with RC cars since I was 9. I'm nearly 50. That's a few years. Got a collection of vintage stuff, and that's really where I've started as an adult, going back into it. On the top here, this is the Tamiya Rough Rider. This is sort of the first off-road buggy Tamiya did, and one of the first parts I did as Knightcustoms was an engine for the back, because obviously it's a VW based dune buggy. The Sand Scorcher there is, it famously has this VW engine hanging out the back, but Tamiya never made that, and I always wanted to make it. And I tried doing it like everyone was back then, which is around maybe 2010, doing it with like styrene and bits of plastic and metal. And then I realized that once I'd done one, I had like 4 or 5 Sand Scorchers I wanted to put them in, and the light bulb came on how I could 3D print them. And if I 3D printed them, they were much easier to replicate. And then it was like, well, if I could do that, I could actually share that file. At this time, I was on Tamiya Club, which is a great website for Tamiya fans, and we were all sharing our builds. And that was sort of the genesis of the company. Was I could there was a company called Shapeways who were offering to print for everyone, because those of you who don't know or haven't tried it yet, printing can be quite time consuming. We can get into that in a minute. Yeah. And this company was saying, hey, if we'll upload your file, we'll sell the file designed for you, we'll print it for you, and we'll ship it to everyone. So at that point, it was like, well, this is a really easy way for me to share my work, because I can have my little store. If people like that engine, they could come buy it, and Shapeways will take care of all the manufacturing, the distribution. And if there was an issue with a reprint, they would do that. So let me focus just on coming up with new parts. And that's sort of how we started. It's changed over time. And yeah, so that was the Tamiya stuff. And then I was talking to some people, and Axial were really starting to come up because it was all sorts, for me, scale. I used to race, and I got a collection of vintage race stuff, but as a collector, it was much more back to the scale things looking real and actually being a working model. And obviously scale crawling was perfect. It brings all of that together. And the SCX-10 Jeep JK had come out, and I've never had a Jeep, but Jeep's so iconic, always wanted a Jeep. So I got my RC SCX-10, and immediately it was like, well, it doesn't have a grill, needs door handles, you better have had different aftermarket bumpers. So I just started making all that stuff. And that's really where Knightcustoms, for most people, kind of became more prominent, because, Axial were the brand, and everybody wants to modify their Jeep. And, that's really what looked like, put us on the map, so to speak. Axial became a very close partner, or the original founders and original team were, they were great. They really took me in and helped me out and introduced me to a bunch of people and really helped me make more parts for everyone. So there's a huge kudos to those guys. We still stay in touch. They're all awesome. Some of them are at other companies. Some of them are no longer in the RC industry, but great bunch of dudes, and sort of really credit them with helping me kind of get to where I am today, because without them, I don't think I'd be here.
That's a very good point there, James. This hobby does change very rapidly. From brands to the trucks themselves, like what becomes the newest thing, and scale has become this thing that has kind of really rocketed the hobby in the last couple of years. So brands change, people come and go. Names pop up, disappear, they start fishing or riding bikes, people come and go. There's a lot of change in this hobby, but you have found a way to continue to adapt and modify and grow with this. Your style and what you've obviously honed your skill, and you know right away what people are going to want, and you could see it with the Bushido. Before it's even out, you had this thing dialed in already, and also you threw the few crumbs out there and said, all right, people, tell me what I missed. What else can I do for you? Throw a couple other things at it. But that's really good to see you be able to adapt and evolve and stay here like a pillar. Knights is a part of this hobby. That is for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, look, it's a great hobby to be in. I mean, I'm obviously, I think Brad said it last week on your interview with him. I'm an RC nut. Like, I have my day job, and that's where I get my design skills from, but that's in a more traditional, like, kids toy industry. Let me
cross that question off. Okay, so what is your day job? Obviously, you just said there is a little bit of overlap, and that's where you get this from, but what does James do during the day?
So my day job, I work for a little company here in Australia. It's not so little now, but it's called Moose Toys. And we make children's toys, and we do all sorts of toys, kids, young and some old, boys and girls. So we do fashion dolls and action figures and play sets. And
are you Santa?
More like Santa's elf.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the parents are Santa. Yeah, I'm Santa. One of Santa's elves.
Santa's elves. Awesome.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm an elf by day.
So when you flew to Australia, when you moved to Australia, what year? 5 years ago?
2019, 3 years ago. Got it just before COVID. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah. And did you have this job lined up? That was all part of the transition? Yep.
Yeah, it's a little backstory. I'm English. You might tell by my accents a bit. But I met a beautiful woman 25 years ago who happened to be Australian, and we set off on this kind of crazy journey together where lived in Australia for a year. Then I got offered an amazing job in Denmark working for Lego, the toy company. That was my first big toy job. So we moved to Denmark for 3 years. After 3 years, they asked us if we'd like to go to the US to run a small design studio for 1 year. It was supposed to be go there for a year, have some fun, come back, do a little sort of trend, understand California. That 1 year turned into many other jobs, and 17 years, but we always wanted to sort of come back to Australia and raise our kids with some Australian culture, heritage, whatever you want to say. And so it got to a point coming up to 2019 where we were like, we've made an amazing life. We loved America. We have many friends there. It was actually, we thought we were at one point just going to stay there. But we're like, if we don't do it now, we'll never, our kids will never, as an adult, they'll be American. They're already American. I've got two, they're teenagers now. So we made the leap. The toy industry is not too different than the RC industry. It's quite small. I know I've worked for a lot of great companies, and very, very fortunate for me, there was a company in Australia that needed someone of my skill set and experience, and we were looking to get back to Australia somehow, some way. The stars aligned, and in 2019 we made the decision to make the move. So they have an office in California, and part of my job is I help that team there. So we worked there initially until we could move, and in August 2019 we set up camp here, and now live in our Australian home, and our kids are in Australian schools, and we're close to my wife's family, which is great. It's been a transition. I miss all my friends in California. It's been hard not to make many of the events that I used to go to all the time, but it's been great with the family.
I am suddenly loving the fact that I made it to Proline by the Fire in 2019, because that just seems to be this oh wow moment that we caught you before you left. Being able to meet you in 2019 at Proline by the Fire was still probably one of those cool moments. Now you've left your tent behind, I guess, because there's still Knight's tents flying at these events when you're not here.
Yeah, well, we have I have some tents with me, and then Element were very gracious because of the partnership the collaboration we were doing, to have a tent, and when they go to places where it makes sense, that they set up a little Knightcustoms
display. Yeah,
to be there, and it, you know, made sense for the Night Runner, which is the first project we did, and we had for those that were in Proline by the Fire, you could see some of the early prototypes for the Bushido there, which was good. I'd like to be there too, but that wasn't possible this year. But Mike, I remember meeting you. Well, that was the last official event I did before we moved. Right. It's great to meet you.
Yeah, Desmond Mooney and I were able to jump on an airplane and come out west. When we were there, did you happen to be with that group of I guess Matty Kett was in the group? There was a group of camel trophy trucks. Were you in that fleet of 5 or 6 of them cruising around?
Yes, I was. Yeah, it was my brother who made the little movie. If you've seen the movie,
yeah,
put a little and Matt was driving one of my CowRcs. He didn't have one, but I needed someone to drive the Range Rover, and Matt volunteered, which was great.
Was your brother's truck the one that was wrapped with with the Freaky Skins wrap? Was that, there was one of them that was wrapped in a Freaky Skins?
Who was that? No, we have 4 or 5. It's in the end of the video. We've got the credits. I'm just trying to go to. My brother was filming. He doesn't actually RC, but he loves to film them. So anytime I can get him to come.
You guys got some great video between what my Trick RC had done with the work of the other guys out there building that scale little city, and you guys were able to wheel all around, and it was great seeing the camel trophy trucks like that, 4 or 5 of them in a row. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, it was fun. We had Brandon from Vanquish, and he had it was funny because he had the sneaky, no one realized it at the time, but he was running a VS410 prototype under his camel trophy Land Rover. He might have had the Freaky Skin wrap actually.
Okay.
And I think he had the Traxxas body on his VS410. So if you watch the video, you can see the axles, but no one saw it. Only the people that knew. And he kept it super tight. That's what's cool about those events. There's always
something secret. There's usually, you know, a motor that somebody's rocking a new motor, or ESC, or rocking some new tires. And sometimes the best place to hide things is right in plain sight.
100% true.
I remember we got some. I remember I did that once with the Copperhead. Yeah, we have some questions. I just see we have a special guest that just joined. Before we go to the special guest, another special guest, we got some questions, James, that came in. First off, we had a comment that said Bluey toys come from Australia, or the factory, Bluey. So a couple of guys are, my daughter's a big fan, watches Bluey 24 hours a day. We got Bluey toys all over the house, so that was funny. And then somebody from Australia is in the comments. He said he's from Melbourne. He said he met you before, Robbie Boaster. He said if James could have part of any RC car design, which one would he like to design? Like if you were a designer of an actual vehicle.
Oh,
question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was very, very fortunate with the collaboration with Element to be able to do the bit I love, which is the body, the sort of vehicle concept, really.
And this one right here, I hung this truck just for today.
Yeah. The metric body I did with Proline. That was my first foray into doing the Lexan body design. And then I did the 3D parts that go with it. With Element, I actually got to do the sort of vehicle concept, which then the bit I actually did the design on was the Lexan body, the bumpers, the accessories that go with it. So that's the bit I like, is the overall concept. And luckily, Element have got some fantastic designers that do that. What I think is the hard stuff, the engineering, the chassis, the drivetrain, transmission, all that stuff I understand it, but I don't have the skill set to do it.
But they've got a great marketing team, and they use that Skunk Works and Area 51. They got a great marketing team, and all the stuff that happens back there with the R&D team at Element and their group of brand ambassadors and testers that help with all that there on the West Coast. They've got a whole core group of good guys. And I think dropping the Bushido right now, it was the right time. The RC community was hungry for that.
Yeah, and I think those collaboration projects that you worked on, I mean, I remember seeing Mike's metric. That was just something else. The way the parts just went with the truck, and that was super good build and collaboration project. But even like the element stuff that you worked on and the parts, and it's just all looking good. Yeah, Mike, we could hear you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, sorry, just completely dumped out on me there. Yeah, what was I saying there? The great team over at Element, and it was great to have you a part of that. And I'm sure you're flattered and humbled to work with such a great group of guys. What was the next question, Pete?
No, I was just no, we're good with the questions. Those were
okay
that came in.
Now, before we bring that guest on, I think he's just going to have to sit tight a second, because James needs this moment here to kind of go through some how we went from Shapeways to my mini factory. And obviously it's not a simple path, obviously, and you'll have to get into the whole nitty gritty, but maybe explain to the people what the differences are between Shapeways and my mini factory, and maybe dumb it down a little bit. But I guess the obvious is you better own a 3D printer.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Shapeways really was the platform that really started Knightcustoms, because before that I was hand making parts and selling one or two of them, and it was really hard for me to get out there and actually fulfill what people were looking for. Now, for those who don't know, Shapeways is a company. It's based in New York and in Eindhoven in Holland, and they basically print farms. They have industrial grade printers, and they're set up to be a manufacturer and also to help facilitate people sell their designs. So there's a Shapeways store front that anyone can, like YouTube, you can set up your store, and they help you display your designs, and when people buy them, they process that sale and make the part. They have a range of printers, so you can go from use different materials basically to keep it simple. You can print in different materials, different qualities, different prices, and they have great customer follow-up in that. If there's a badly printed part or you've received the wrong thing, they're a company that are dedicated to this. So you call them up and they will, within 48 hours, get back to you, and often they just replace the part. They don't ask you to send it back, they just send you a new part. So
and it does work. I've used it many times. You get what you pay for. And like you had said, James, there are tiers in the material that you're going to pick. If you pick a PLA or maybe something a little bit stronger, you want to go to a carbon nylon. It is a little bit more expensive, but their prints are very nice. And like you said, if there is a bad one, great customer service.
Well, they've changed over time. The thing that I figured out as sort of we developed and made parts was the industrial printer bit we talk about a lot. It's really the SLS printer. So the SLS printer is a different type of manufacturing of 3D printer. It's an industrial grade printer. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And why that's important is that the type of part it can make is a laser sintered, that's the SLS nylon. And nylon is really, when you talk about what are good materials for RC car parts, nylon is one of the best materials. So I got like one of my first props here. This is a SAM rail we made. So this is a sintered SLS part, which means it's nylon. It's 100% nylon all the way through, and it's very durable. So nylon, for those who don't know, that's what they originally made RC10 race buggy arms in. It's very durable. You can get a pretty good resolution detail on it. It's not the best resolution. Like resins are better for the finest detail, and if you want to do figures or certain very small detail parts. But resin's very fragile. We sort of joke sometimes, it looks at a rock and it will shatter. Now you can get better resins now, but back then nylon was, and still is today, for most of what we do, we design it to be in nylon because it's durable. It will take a rock hit. I try not to, this is probably where I push the envelope in terms of structure, because this is a part that is the chassis. Normally what I'll do are things that are detail parts, accessories, but they're good for bumpers, things that, you know, can take it, they'll take an impact and take a hit. Now, you can print that on what we call an FDM. At-home printer are typically FDM printers, but because of the way that the material is basically fused together, the SLS is really the superior for it. It's got the best balance of durability and detail. Now, it comes
Time out. Can you dumb this down even a little bit more, even for me? SLS, or what was the other one? FMF? FDM. So can you simplify that with a brand? So I own Ender 3 Pros, and I'm using 99% of the time I'm printing with a PLA plus a PETG. What is an Ender 3 Pro? Is that the FDM?
Yeah, so quite simply, like an SLS printer uses powder. It takes a bed of powder, like literally dust, and it hits it with the laser and makes that dust like melt together. That's what an SLS is.
Okay, I don't have that.
No, that's fine. And they're hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you probably don't need one. You probably don't need one. FDM, that's typically the at-home type printer. Now, an FDM, the easy way is the one with the filament. It's got the big roll of filament. It's basically, believe it or not, a glorified hot gun, a glue gun. It's the same technology a glue gun uses. You put, there's a filament. So if it's a filament printer, it's really an FDM printer. Fused deposition something. I don't know the exact acronym.
Okay, close enough.
Resin printers. Now, resin printers use a liquid. And you take a resin liquid and you're either hitting it with a laser, or there can be other, it's always laser or light. You're basically turning it from a liquid into a solid. And those are the best for the highest detail. So, but fragile. This can crack. It typically, yes. Now, historically, 100%. Everyone's been developing, all those printer technologies have evolved and got better. So SLS now, you can get an SLS printer for $30,000. Well, they used to be $300,000. So that price has gone down. They're now doing it where Hewlett Packard, if you go to one of the complaints of Shapeways used to be, there's many complaints, but one of them used to be all the parts are white, they dye them black. And when you scratch it, you see the white marks. So they're not really black nylon. And people get frustrated by that because you're always getting a marker and filling it in. The latest Hewlett Packard printer, which is most of our parts now are done in the it's called MJF, but it's a PA12. It's still nylon. It's still very similar to SLS, but it's all black now. So it's a solid black part. It's actually, because it uses a chemical rather than a laser, it's got an even better bond. It's even more durable. So that's where SLS have developed. FDM, as you know, Enders are brilliant. They used to be, there's still a learning curve. They can still go out of calibration. You have to know how to noodle them and get them to print right, get your layer height right, get your adhesion to the bed right. But they have got cheaper and more consistent self-leveling beds now. So that was one of the hard parts to set up a printer. So they've become more and more like plug and play. Like you buy it, you can buy it assembled, you can set it up very simply, and it will do a lot of the adjustment for you. I use a Prusa. Enders are brilliant. I recommend if you go, and then now you can get the Ender series. I recommend two printers if you're at home and want to get started.
Yep.
Ender is the best. If you're on a budget, you need about $500 to get started, and they go up to 1,000. The Pro, but I recommend if you're starting to get a self-leveling bed, that really helps. I use a Prusa. That's the same that Matt and Josh use for scale builders and Harley. Yep. They come almost, they're around the $1,000 mark, but they're plug and play. You don't have to upgrade anything. You've got your self-leveling bed, you've got your metal hot end, you've got all the bits that normally people say, well, that's what you want to do with your Ender once you get started and use it a lot. So those two are really good brands. They're FDM. The next one is resin. Now, the thing with resin is it always used to be super fragile, super detailed, super fragile, but the resins have now got more sophisticated. So if you follow Todd Norton on Facebook or Instagram, Todd is somewhat of a resin printer genius, and he's actually made his own blend of resin, which is both super detailed and flexible. Now, it's his proprietary mix. He won't tell you how he did it, but if you have a file, he'll print it for you or charge you for that, and he can do it in his materials. And that's where I say, if you have a file from us and you want someone to print it for you, someone like Todd is a great place to go, and he'll do it in a resin. He's now got a large format resin printer where he can almost do whole body. I think you can actually do whole bodies. So
wow.
He is, again, that's, he does that for people as a service. He charges for it. But just to illustrate, those are the three types, and they've all got better. So it's not really a bad one now. It's just, what's your budget? What's your expectation of what you want the thing to do? And do you want to print it or not? Right? Do you have the time, and et cetera, et cetera? So they all have different costs based on that.
Now, one thing you mentioned about the plug and play, as you get these 3D printers, they have come a long way to the point where you get them out of the box and they almost come assembled. But even if they don't, like the Ender 3 did not come assembled, but that is not a bad thing. Actually, like buying a kit RC car, having to assemble it the first time actually helps you get more comfortable with knowing the printer. So I would encourage anyone starting out looking for a printer, do not be intimidated by having to put your printer together. It's actually more beneficial. You learn a lot more about the printer right out of the gate. And I wasn't as scared of it when you had to tweak it and level it and realize you're not going to break it. It's not that fragile. It's pretty durable.
It's just like RC cars. Like if you can build an RC car, you can build
a printer.
And again, it's ready to run versus kit. And depending on the type of person you are and your technical skills, you might want to start with a ready to run, like already built for you. You plug it in, and then as you have to calibrate it, you learn these things.
And just like an RC car, there's upgrades for printers. You can keep upgrading them.
And they're not, and just as a cautionary, you do need to maintain them. You do need to adjust them. They do wear out. They do need to be recalibrated. So it's a reason why I've never got into the manufacturing printing side for people, because you talk to anyone who does it, it's time, and there's a charge to that. People don't like to talk about how much you spend like looking after machines and checking prints. When prints don't work, having to print them again. So it might be pennies in plastic, but the time and maintenance and investment in that has a cost to it. And for me, I want to spend my time making more designs for people versus making existing designs for people. So this just allows me to focus on what's next without having to basically run a manufacturing company, which is what it is when you get into these things. So that's where Shapeways helped me, because they were a manufacturing company. Now, over time, Shapeways initially were just trying to get out there and scale. So they were offering basically they were making a loss. They were offering their parts relatively cheap, although people didn't think of it that way. But for what they do, the service they offer and the investment they made, over time, my hope was that prices would go down as the technology got more prolific and their volumes went up. Normally prices go down. Unfortunately, Shapeways took a different path. They went, well, we want to focus on higher margin, smaller volume objects. So their prices over time have gone up. And that basically for me forced a tipping point. So I didn't want to make the parts myself. Shapeways, who were by far the best at doing that for people on a scale that everyone could access it and everyone could get their parts relatively quickly, went in a different direction. Now, I still sell my parts on Shapeways. It's still a great place to go if you want certain parts and you wanting the best materials and you want some company that's always going to be very responsive if things don't work out. I still recommend you go that way, but you're paying a premium. I still get some of my parts from Shapeways, even though I've got my printers and I've got everything, because access to those printers for certain parts is the best way to do it. Just pay a premium. Now, but there was a tipping point. So it got to a point where I was like, well, more and more people I know have printers, and I want as many people as possible to get my designs. And so just around, it was actually the metric. The metric was the product, the project. We experimented with it, because what people said was, you can't sell your designs because you can't protect them. The minute you sell one design as a CAD file to somebody who can print it, all they're going to do is share it with all their friends, and you're only going to sell one. Now, we've seen that in music, we've seen it in games, we've seen it in everything. But I had a little bit of a different thought about it, because I've grown up with buying DVDs and vinyl through to the digital distribution of stuff.
Yep.
Napster, thank you. Myself personally is this: people are always going to steal stuff. People are always going to share stuff without paying for it. And that's a cost of business in this new age, because no matter how sophisticated any of this encryption technology is on anything, I know my son can watch any movie whenever he wants without paying for it, because there's some way to get it on the internet. But that's not my business model. And myself personally, when I want something, I want to buy it from the creator. I want to know it came from the creator. I want to know that's the original file, not somebody who may say it's the original file, but it actually isn't. It's a copy of it, and it's not as good. And I also want to reward the person that's helping me with that. That's just me personally. And I believe that's who I want my customer to be. So I put my parts out. So I thought, I'm going to try this and see if it works. And if I sell one part and don't sell anymore, and I see thousands of people with my stuff, I was wrong.
And we'll know. Yeah.
I was wrong. But what happened was, as I sort of hoped it would, and things don't always work, that more people bought my part than shared my part or stole my part, or whatever the term you want to use.
Well, people start policing themselves, and it's an honor system. And like you said, it's only a few bucks. It's not breaking the bank. And if you're really sneaky, you wait till James Knight drops a promo code once or twice a year, and you go hit him up on My Mini Factory when that 30% off promo code comes. And that's all you do.
And so, you know, we price it cheap enough that hopefully people feel like it's great value, because the hours I put into making this stuff, you know, you can't do that on minimum wage. So you're getting a good deal. And you put in the time to, you know, and the thing is, once you own the file, if you break the part, which happens to matter how durable, you can just print another one. And if you've got multiple rigs you want that part on, you can print as many as you want for your rig. So things like gas cans and spotlights and snorkels, they're great for that. So we started with mini factory. When we did the metric, we made it available both on Shapeways and both on My Mini Factory. And the funny thing was, it wasn't funny, it was kind of painful at the time. Nobody really understood what we were doing on My Mini Factory. Everyone went, well, I want that metric that James showed. And it was like $700 in Shapeways parts. There were a small but very loud group of people on one of the forums that were like, this is daylight robbery. This guy's robbing us. This is not cool. And I'm like, I'm not making $700. And I know Shapeways weren't making $700. But that's really what it cost to bring it to market through Shapeways, which was why, for I think $30, you could buy all the files and you could print them yourselves. And what was kind of been interesting about the journey is that there's always critics, and there's always things that you can do better, and you have to accept that, and it's all fine. But when I was only selling through Shapeways, people were like, well, this is $2 worth of plastic. It's not worth whatever the amount of money was we were charging. And, you know, parts they start like $15, sometimes $10 on Shapeways. So it's not like everything was $30, $40, $50, $100. But now we've made the parts available, and it, you know, you can print them yourselves. People complain about how long it takes. Oh, it took 50 hours to print this part. I'm like, what do you want, man? I mean, you can pay someone else 50 hours to do it, or you know, it's just, there is no, obviously there's no perfect way where it's super cheap, super quick. We'll get there in the future, I'm sure, as printers get better. I'm happy to share some tips on how you can reduce your print time,
Yeah,
increase your consistency. But yeah, but that's sort of been the journey. So now most of our stuff's through My Mini Factory, especially the big stuff, which is super. I won't even offer it through Shapeways because it's hundreds of dollars. But we've really had this shift in more people have printers, more people want to print themselves. Enough people are prepared to like throw some money my way to buy the file, and that gives me just enough money to keep doing it. So that's what we've been doing.
it's a happy little place that we landed in here. And I think the My Mini Factory thing works. And I remembered the transition from Shapeways to My Mini Factory. I knew the struggle and the gamble that you took on us. Could we be responsible adults and hold the key to a Knightcustoms file without sharing it with the world? And I'm glad to hear the feedback from you, thinking, you know, there's good humans out there still willing to do the right thing. So I'm glad it worked, and I'm glad we're going down this path.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and I just want to say that the community has been great, because I've got eyes everywhere. Like, people will tell me all the time. Some people don't understand the rules, which is fine. And normally when I explain, when you buy a file from me, it's for your personal use. What that means is that you can use it for yourself. Now, you can hire somebody to print it for you if you don't have a printer, as long as that's parts for you and not for you to sell to your buddies. It's a gray area, right? But when people understand that, like, I can't make a business selling my parts to other people, my designs to other people, it's pretty straightforward. The fact that once you own the file, you can get someone to print it for you, and they can charge you to print it for them, for you, that's good. Now, some people just don't get that. Some people are like, well, I've paid you for this design, so now I own the design and I can do whatever I want with it. There's a few people you know, regardless of how clearly I explain it, and I said, no, if you look at when you buy the file, you're actually agreeing to there's a licensing agreement through My Mini Factory you're signing up to, that you're buying the license to use it for yourself. Some people just don't understand that, and that is what it is. Not everyone gets it. There are only very, very few, but again, kudos to the community, because in general, people do understand what I'm trying to do. They do support it. They do help other people understand that when maybe they don't. And it's been, generally speaking, a positive experience, which has been great.
Peter, do we still have our guests sitting in the wings?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to give our guests a 2-minute warning here. Get yourself squared away, zipper up your pants, put your game face on. James, we are going to bring in a friend of the show, a friend of yours, a pillar in the RC community. This is a man that we could sit here and talk hours and hours with this guy. But a lot of the reason why you are here, James Knight, the reason that you are here on this date, this 10/22 of October, well, it's actually probably 10/23 in your world. The 22nd day of October, the reason you are here is to really kind of drum up some hype, attention for the Bushido and what you have been doing with them. So no better person to bring on here with us and to hang out on Saturday night with us on the Rad Show would be none other than Brad Geck. So go ahead and flip his lights on, and we thought it would be the perfect time. Just maybe we could talk a little bit more in detail about the Bushido parts, and give us some tech tips. Oh, look at him. Look at James flexing his Bushido. So who do we have to blame for picking the name? Did you have any creative insight into the name of this thing, or was that already named when they brought it to you?
Element. The company always named the product. It's the hardest part. Brad will tell you how hard it is to name stuff. I can tell you from my day job, we spend more time trying to name things than we do actually making them. Hey, Brad, good to see you, buddy.
Brad,
hey,
how
Mike.
are you?
Good, guys. It's good to see you.
I see what's right behind Brad. I'm staring not at the Bushido right now. I'm looking at that Mongoose truck. Oh. So, James, do you know what this is? Are you a fan of Rad BMX, the movie?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, you get
No.
it. Okay.
You got some, are those some tech decks, flick trick bikes? Yep, I might have designed a few of those.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
He even
Yeah.
has a GT Performer.
Look at that.
I love it. Is that that looks like an Eddie Fiola edition or something? It is like, is it? Oh man, that is
Well, I
so
think it's
good.
one of the benefits of, so I know just before the call, I grew up in England, in a small little town in England, but I grew up skateboarding, living California lifestyle. Was one of the very few kids that did that, but me and my buddies did that. And so we've, you know, I think from a generational standpoint, we've blown up with a global culture of this American, actually California centric thing. So the BMXs, the skateboards, the RC cars, all that stuff is, you know, that's what I grew up with since
Okay.
as long as I can remember.
Yeah, so I love that there's history here. Brad, I'm sure you've been listening in a little bit here. We've been talking a little bit more in detail about Bushido, and you might recognize what I got done today on a PLA F. Oh, now we're gonna flex.
Look at
My
that.
man's been printing hard.
I've got the car, you guys have got the parts. That's the
Right,
genius thing about so
I just
easy
keep-
to distribute the file.
If I keep stacking them together enough, they start to look like a car if you close one eye.
Oh, look,
Wow.
Oh,
Look at that.
so this one that you're holding up, Brad, has some hours on it already. Is this one that was getting the christening at Proline by the Fire?
Yes, this was one of the adopter rides that everybody got to play with at Proline.
So did you cut the roof off?
Yes, I did. I wanted to show that beautiful interior.
Okay. Well, okay. That interior, did you print that one, Brad, yourself?
Well, yes and no. We printed it at work. So as you guys just got a lesson from the man himself at Associated, we have an SLS printer. So we can print a lot faster and with a lot more durability than with my, again, as to quote James, my 3-axis glue gun here behind me.
So the SLS, that was the one that you were talking about with the powder that turned, that was the powder. Okay. But up there in price, we're talking $30,000+ for a printer like that. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Well, Brad, I put that printer, or I'm sorry, I put that interior, the base on the slicer on the Ender 3. And I think I'm staring down the barrel of a 2-day print right now. Okay.
You want to talk about print settings and materials quick?
Yeah, and how because I was seeing how you had it on that kind of angle.
Yeah, let me the reason I've sort of positioned, I don't know with the lighting in here. So this is an FDM print base. These are the things you print on, right? And you limit it to, this is like I won't give it to you in inches, but it's about 200 by 200 millimeters, 20 centimeters. And that's a good size printer. You can print most things for RCs on a print bed this big. So I have a printer that I hope most people will have, whether it's an Ender or a Prusa. We try and get everything to fit. Now the interiors are always tricky. So we did it a couple of different ways for the Night Runner, because the Night Runner obviously is a double cab. Now the Bushido is a little better because it's shorter, but it's still a big interior because it's a 1.7, true 1.7 interior. So one of the things you could do, so when people were printing the Night Runner, the sort of intuitive thing is to just position it on the print bed in the print software like this. Now that works, but you get a lot of support. Now there's one of the questions I get a lot is, do I need supports on or not? Or my thing didn't print, and normally it's because they didn't put supports on. And what supports do is you can't print in midair. Like if I just put a drop of material down, there's nothing underneath it, it just falls to the floor. So you need to put supports on. So what we actually recommend you do with the interiors is, if you angle them like this, these are supports. It does two things. It minimizes the sort of surface area, so it's quicker to print going vertically than left to right. But it also makes these supports easier to break off. So there's different support settings, but normally if you have a generic, like you start with default print, I only use default printer settings because if I can do that and get it to print, then you guys can. So I don't try and be fancy and do, but really one of the key things is orientation. So you want to make sure that it's on the bed, you got your supports on, and that's sort of your first thing. So normally the 45 or vertical will help you print speed and help make it quick and easy to get your supports off, because I've had people that printed it this way and every time they try to take the support off, it destroyed the part, which is the next thing that you have to look at when you print. So supports and angle orientation, as I call it, or they call it, is one. The other one is the resolution. They call it layer height. So for certain parts you want, it's the bigger the layer height, the more the steps are. And that's why it used to be, or you look at a 3D print, you can see all the steps. But even as the FDM printers have got better, my Prusa prints like beautifully smooth parts because it can print at 0.05 millimeter layer height, which is a very, very tight resolution. Still not as good as the resin, but I can show you these parts and you're like, it's very, very little stepping, as they call it. So, but when you want the bigger part, you don't need that kind of resolution. So in the interior, really look at your layer settings, because especially with interiors, it's sometimes good to actually do bed liner on it because it will take out the stepping and give you a texture. So if it's more of a textured interior, and then you can print it like 0.1 layer height, which means you get a little bit more stepping. But once you hit that with bed liner and then you paint it, it's going to print much faster. And it will also be a bit more durable because the bigger the layer height, you get a better bond and you get some better adhesion properties between the layers. It's also a little bit more durable. And then lastly, you've got infill. So infill is one of the cool things, and I don't have a part where I can show you, is that basically with FDM printers, one of the cool things, actually the advantages of them, they don't print solid, they can print hollow, and they've got like a honeycomb structure inside it. And that makes it both strong and super light. But if you don't, you can adjust your infill, which is how dense that honeycomb is, but also your shells, which is your wool thickness. And what you want to do is you can play with those things. So 3 to 5 shells gives you like about 1 millimeter in wool thickness. And then you want to get the infill as light as possible and it still be durable. So 15% infill is a good benchmark. But in things like the interior, it's not for the base here, you want to go 100% infill because you want it solid. It's about 1 millimeter thickness, and that will be the strongest for that part. So when you tear it off the bed, it isn't hollow and it doesn't collapse. But when you do the dash, which is a big solid part, hang on, I've got one here. Wait, there we go. So this part you want to do with 100% infill because it's very thin. And you want to do it at an angle with a minimize this and make sure you've got supports on. When you do this part, this doesn't need to be structural. So you want to make sure your wool thickness or your shells is set to 3 to 5. It's just a unit number normally, but then make your infill not very dense. So you can go like 30-40% infill, or sorry, 5 to 10% infill, super low, which means you get big honeycomb. When you see it print, because you want as little material inside, it will print faster, it will be lighter because you don't want a big heavy interior. That's why we kind of designed it that way. And that's sort of the balance you get. So as you print it, you can watch. When you get the part off, if it collapses in your hand, you either need to beef up your shells, your wool thickness of the part, or you need to beef up the interior and increase the density of the infill and make that number higher. So those are the sort of the main areas. And then having a level bed, making sure it's clean. If you understand those sort of, is it 4 or 5 variables, you're off and running. And so you should be able to do the Bushido interior around 35 hours, day and a half.
Okay.
And
well, now that if you put it on that 45, that could probably reduce a little of the infill time. And infill, I had my cold hard reality and learned all about the infill and the importance of infill when it came to the tent, your rooftop tent.
yes.
That thing turns into a brick.
Yes.
I think the first time I ever printed one of them, the infill was way too high, probably a 75, 80%. It literally weighed like a brick. And you're like, no, 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 no. Here it is.
There's the tent.
What now? What infill is? Oh, no, wait. Is
Well,
that?
that's the hollow one.
That's
so the,
okay.
the
So
initial,
over
the
time,
same
we've
thing.
adjusted it. Okay.
Yeah. Now you can, on something like a rooftop tent that you want up high, the best thing about, especially in FDM, this is the SLS one, so it's hollow because you
Yes.
can't do the infill. But the one that's got there with all of this inside is just, you make it like 5% infill. So it's super big honeycomb, super light, but you make sure the shell's like 3 to 5. Actually, 5 is probably better. So you've got a thick shell. It's like a honeycomb structure. It makes it super light, actually very strong. Prints like, and then again, print it on the 45. You print it on the 45 because on this case, this is a textured surface. You really can't see it. You get what they call ringing. You get these, it looks like the topology.
Like a topographical map. Yeah.
Topographical map. Now,
Yep.
when you print on the angle, you reduce those. So anytime you've got a bigger surface, so it reduces your print time and then makes it a lot more detailed. Because even on shape waves, this has got some of that ringing, and then you have to spray paint and sand, and you don't want to be doing that.
Which I don't mind doing, and that's why I threw the inner fenders through very quickly with a, very fast print speed, because they're going to get sprayed or sanded down. But at 100% infill and a super slow print speed were the headrest. These things turned out amazing. The headrest. 100% infill at the best print setting for an Ender 3. Brad, what kind of printer do you have at home? Are you an Ender, a Persa?
I have an Ender 5 Pro.
Ender 5. So is the Ender 5 a little bit larger bed then? Is that the difference between a 3, a larger bed?
I do believe it's 250 millimeters by 250 millimeters. So it's I think it's a little bit bigger. The difference is the bed moves up and down versus the bed moving around, so that the head moves, the bed stays stationary. Where I believe the 3, your bed moves around.
Correct. Wow. Okay, that is a bigger difference. Okay.
Mike, if we're going to talk Element for a second and give them a huge props, the rooftop, if you want a rooftop tent on your rig, yes, you can 3D print one, but what you really want to do is get the Element rooftop tent. So we designed for the Night Runner.
So what did they do? Start injection molding these now? Is that?
And this is where kudos to Element and the development team. I had an idea how I want to do this. And the funny story is this is inspired by a fashion doll head from a Barbie. So there is a crossover between the day job and RC toys.
Okay.
So it's roto molded. And what that basically does is a different, because you can't injection mold the detail and the stitching and the undercuts in this in an injection molded tool, not without spending a fortune on that tool, which you'd never do. So Element basically worked with my idea and said, yeah, I think that's possible. And we've got a very smart guy at Element that figured it out. Said, okay, how do you make a fashion doll head? We make this the same way as a Barbie head. It's roto molded, and they basically inject it, spin it, and they pull it out. So it sometimes comes a little deformed, but if you hit it with a hot hair dryer, it chokes back in, but it gives you a super light, super detailed, and it's what, $20 including the rack from Element. Like, it's super affordable. Every skate rig should have an Element rooftop tent designed by Knightcustoms.
I just got done printing all the bumpers. I did the front and the rear bumper for the Trail Runner or for the Night Runner, and then they came out with the bumpers right after it. Or is that the same process when they came out with the licensed bumpers for the Night Runner? Here.
The Demello. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. The Night Runner was really an evolution on everything I learned from the Proline metric. We tried a bunch of stuff like the hidden posts with the engine bay that you could. There were a bunch of things we tried there, to credit to Proline, that had never been done before, and they totally signed up to it, and we got basically a bunch of shit for it. But it's proven to be like a really good body. You just go read the forums of all the things we're doing, how expensive, blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't for those guys. The other guys love it. Look at Brad's rig. It's unbelievable.
Oh,
But during that process, so, you know, made some development partners in terms of DeMello. So that style, DeMello really coined it. And initially I didn't have a relationship with DeMello, and I did a design inspired by for the metric. And then by the time we got to the Night Runner, I'd met Jason from DeMello. We partnered up. We were talking with Element. Element were like, we want to take on board partners too. So Front Runner and DeMello came on board as part of the collaboration. And so then the Night Runner came out with officially
bumpers.
And then they're injection molded, and they're in super durable material. So if you want, you know, it has the best.
Spend the money and get them injection molded. You do the injection mold. Element makes them affordable enough, and you get them super clean. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I went through the whole print process, got them all dialed in, and then right after that, here they came.
Yeah, but bumpers are tough. Like, you know, when we talk about things that you can print at home on an FDM, people ask all the time, well, what do you print with? PLA is the standard way to print. If you're just learning to print and want to figure out how to print, PLA is the best. It's the lowest temperature. It's the easiest to do, but it isn't as durable. If you leave it in the back of your car, they can melt. There's a bunch of things you find out when you go through the thing. So the next one up is PETG, and that is more durable. It's a little harder to get your print settings right, but it doesn't. It's more. If you're living in California and you leave your rig in the back of the car, it's less likely to melt, and it's more durable. And then when you go up from there, you can either go to ABS or nylon. Now, nylon is the material that most RC is a sort of a base material that most RC cars use for some sort of mechanical, like transmission houses. RC10s from Team Associated Elements parent company, or AE Elements parent company. Back in the day, that was the material. Now you can 3D print it at home. It's not quite as good as an injection molded because of the material property in the manufacture, but that is a really, really good material. That's why Shapeways printed it, and I recommend it. ABS is the material that most scale model hard bodies are printed in. So if you get like a body from RC four-wheel drive, that's typically an ABS or styrene body. Again, different properties, but those can all be printed at home. And as you go up the list, they get a little harder. You need enclosures, you need good ventilation for ABS. It gives off a toxic fume when you melt it. So you just have to be more careful. And as you get more experience, you can do those things. So there's no real limit depending on how deep you want to go and how much time you want to spend. And so for the bumpers, we always say PETG at a minimum, but it's good if you can actually print it in nylon. That would be the best material to print at home. It's going to be more durable. I try and design, like I test and run everything I sell. So it's not, you know, I've used it, and I always say it's scale trailing. You should be able to bolt up. You should be able to go out. You're building a scale rig. Yes, you might hit a rock or two. You should be fine. Now, it doesn't mean you can't break it. If you are putting if you're Harley and you put 4S in your rig, and your way to get over something is to, you know, throttle out of it, then you're probably not wanting my parts on your car.
Yeah, way more scale build, and know what you have on there. But what I tell anybody with the 3D printed part and you're set up at an event, I shift everything over a little bit. Just don't let it sunbathe all day long. I kind of move things over into the shade and underneath the tent a little bit more. And if you know you got 3D printed parts all over your car, just respect them. Take care of them.
Yeah, nylon and ABS and even PETG will be fine. It's really PLA where it's the one where Ty from Tekin, he made this amazing model for Axelfest one year.
Yeah,
left it in the tent.
Yeah,
just the things would start to do it. And it's more the smaller part. The smaller the part, the more prone they are to that. And so it's all relative to the temperature and if it's moving or not, and the size of the actual piece of plastic.
How about TPU? It's more of a rubbery.
Yeah. If you follow, I'm sure most people here, Scale Builders Guild, Matt did some really good prints in TPU for like the fender lips.
Okay.
So if you're doing the Night Runner and you want to do the high clearance fender, which just literally is an extension of the mold to let you run a slightly bigger tire, that's great in TPU because it's more basically like rubber. It's similar to, you can't really print tires in, you kind of can, but You
I've
shouldn't.
seen it. People have tried it, but they make
you've
great
done that, yeah.
window nets. Window nets crumble up and
Window
they go
nets are
right back
great.
into shape.
Fenders and snorkels are good if you really are a guy that rolls a lot and you want to flex a little bit. You give them a little bit of detail,
This
but
was done in the TPE.
yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Oh,
really
yeah.
good.
But yeah, there's tolerances, and again, you're probably poking the bear probably with some more experienced printers out there. Like James is giving us a condensed version in a few minutes time. I know there's plenty of other professional printers out there that are all going to have their myths and tech tips and ways of doing things, which is all great, but listen to the man, and it's great hearing it come right from you. And I've been sitting here writing down notes. I feel like I've been in school all night long. I know right now how I'm going to do my interior on this Bushido.
Well,
Brad,
Mike, what we're going to do, I don't want to take up all Brad's time, is that,
yes.
So this is naked right now. Thanks to Element for sending this through. If you follow my Knightcustoms at Instagram, once the Bushido is released, you're going to actually see sort of a daily post update on first printing the part, the orientation for each part, and then on the rig. So it'll be like a daily series until it's done, and they're never done, but it'll probably go for about 10 days. So you'll see the orientation. I'll share the settings in the comments. I'll share the materials I'm printing with. So you'll be able to follow along. So you can, when we release, and Brad can talk to that, you can go buy this, you can come buy the files off My Mini Factory, and then you can do the sort of how-tos as we go through the series.
And we do it all together, like a big family, and step by step. I love it. That's a great idea. You've never done it that way before, James. You didn't go.
No, we've done it in bits, and it always seems, we always get great feedback, which is when they see how I put something on a print bed, and then they understand why. And then it's like, because fenders, you pretty much, there's a similar approach almost every time. Inner fenders are a very popular thing, and you can configure them how you want. And they're definitely a part that doesn't need to be super durable, so it's perfect for 3D printing, like a bumper or an external roll cage or something. Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing: the interior, the fenders, the rear bed, the light fixings. You know, there'll be some probably some crossover collabs there as well, so keep an eye out for that in terms of how you like the rig and everything. But more to come.
Well, James, you just walked yourself into a trap. This is my pet peeve or question, my issue I run into sometimes with a James Knight file. And I've gotten this question a million times. Where you're going to go and print the lenses, clear lenses. I have clear PLA on my printer right now, ready to go print little lenses. Load them onto my slicer. And where do they sit? In the middle of the air, and I can't get them to get on the bed. Why are some of your files harder to get on the slicer and line up and slice? Were they designed for shapeways? Is that the answer? They were designed for a different printer?
Yeah, the lenses especially were. They were designed for shapeways, and some of them we just poured it over. So what I say is, if you've ever got that in whatever reason, there's something with the file that makes it sit like that, which isn't affected by shapeways, because that's my go-to to get the clearest lenses. I've still not really perfected a good lens through. You can do it, but I haven't got there. So Mike, if you do ever have that, I always say, ask people to reach out. I can resend you the file. We can update it. If it's got a particular problem, all I ask is send me a screenshot of whatever you're looking at.
Okay.
And just say, here's what I'm looking at. What am I doing wrong? Or is there something wrong with the file? And I'll either tell you what you're doing wrong, or I'll update the file. And the best thing about My Mini Factory is if you guys spot something I missed, I can update the download. So often what you'll see is you can go back to My Mini Factory if you purchased a file, and you can re-download it again, but with the update or added files. So things like the Pelican cases, a lot of people had trouble printing them with the case and the lid. So now we've separated them. Just let me know. You can reach me via Instagram or via Facebook or via My Mini Factory Messenger or via Shapeways.
Right.
And so you made a good point there. You do update the file. So if somebody comes along and buys the Bushido bundle on day one, whenever it drops, and say you come out with a grill maybe a month from now, is that when you continually go back and you update those initial bundles? Like you'll put
Yeah,
the
there's normally a limit. I feel like if it fits within the theme and the intent of the original purchase, and we come up with something new or something better, we'll bundle it back in, so you'll be able to go in and download the update.
I've rediscovered things multiple times. I'll go back into a bundle and be like, that wasn't there before. I know it.
Yeah, normally check the description because it will say update and we've added X, Y, and Z.
Perfect.
So you get that, and especially if we found an issue, we can fix it. Like Brad will tell you, if you put something into production, you made 10, 20,000 pieces and you made a mistake,
ouch,
you can't update that. I mean, you can, by the time you've updated it, it's a very hard thing to do. But on My Mini Factory, we can do it as soon as we find the issue, and you can get it straight away.
And before we go on to Brad, we had a question come in for you, James, our buddy from Australia. Is James planning on replacing the printed parts on his drift car in TPU?
That's from Rob, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was drifting with Rob Friday, and my car may have gone a little wide on a corner, and I destroyed my rear, which were 3D printed because I broke the original plastic ones, and now when they break, I just print new ones. Thanks, Rob.
I'm staring at my screen here, and between these two meatheads backdrops, like the amount of cars behind these guys, the wall candy behind you is unbelievable. Both of you, very impressive.
Well, you haven't seen what I got on the floor.
Oh,
Yeah. I was thinking the same
same
thing.
thing. You have no idea what's around. Very impressive collection, guys. Very
Thanks.
impressive.
Same. Always great to see someone's hobby shop.
I know that we are running late, so what I'm going to do is we're going to put James on a spot here, and I think he did promise he was going to show up with a promo code for I don't know if it was going to be restricted just to the Bushido. And number two, let's put Brad on the spot and ask very, very nicely, do you have any update for us? Do we have a tracking? Can you go on your phone and tell us what is the new ETA for a Bushido to hit a hobby shop near you?
I'm sure I could. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that Bushido's actually arrived Thursday. So they're here in the States. They go through a QC process. We go through them, make sure that they're right, check them in, all the fun stuff that comes with receiving large orders of product. But they should start shipping nationwide or worldwide next week.
Wow.
Fantastic. So we took a gamble booking you tonight, James. Was like, well, we're just going to roll the dice and hopefully this works. And it turned out it did. This is a good pre-run right before the Bushido dropping. Hopefully turn up a little bit of excitement and hopefully give some people, I'm hoping to touch somebody that's never bought something on My Mini Factory before. Like, listen, the Bushido is the right truck, to give it a go. Get a bundle from My Mini Factory, get over to Knightcustoms and buy the bundle and give it a go. And you're not alone. The tech support over at the Knights fan page, on many RC forums, you're not alone when it comes to 3D printing this stuff.
So here's a question for Brad. So I took your advice. I signed up for the fast track. Now that you mentioned that they're in the States, would people be getting notified next week then?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
I guess I gotta buy another truck, Mike.
Right. We tried it.
I'm working on this, and now I gotta buy another one.
It never ends.
Never ends.
We try to get to them first. We want to get the shops their stuff first before we ship directly from our website. So there will be
Monday, Tuesday, I gotta buy a truck, right?
Yep.
But you're saying you're going to give the hobby shops a couple of weeks before you sell them on the Element site?
Not a couple of weeks, but there's always times set aside for them specifically. The last thing we want to do is undercut our frontline soldiers.
But that makes a big difference. Even to give them a week, you know, give them that little bit of time. And I think this is where the hashtags were starting. This is where it was so important to really go help the local hobby shop. And They're the ones fixing your RC car on that Saturday afternoon when it breaks and you want to get back up and running. Where do you always run to? Your local hobby shop. So remember
So
them.
I gotta
during
buy
the
the
week.
truck and then I gotta go to Knightcustoms. So I got some work to do.
Gotta hit, yes, we'll head over to my mini factory and wait, yeah, and
Wow.
get printing. So far, the print process has been going very smooth. Brad, my question to you, did you print them in that gray color or did you spray them that color?
The sintered powder that we use at Associated is that gray color. So that is the standard raw gray color.
Gotcha. You're okay. I'm very jealous that you got that interior done already, but it needed to be done.
Well, he has to print, he's got the pre-production.
Yeah.
So that isn't the interior you have, Mike. You have the pre-production. So Brad's really got somewhat of a one-off.
A one-off. Okay.
The keen eye. That's really, we took to make sure we got the size right. We took the metric, not the metric, sorry, the Night Runner.
Yep.
And we switched a bunch of stuff just to like get the size right. And that's the one we had in time for Proline by the Fire. So Brad has a true collectible there. It's one of one. What you have, Mike, is the Suzuki inspired interior, which is much truer to the original Samurai or whatever it was called, whichever market you had it in.
Yep.
Which has the updated dash, updated seats, correct backrest, except and side door details.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the driver, Brad. Who is driving that Bushido right now?
Richie Cunningham.
Oh. What did you have to do? Cut his legs off?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's
been hacked up. Okay.
He's from the knees down. He's been amputated.
Knees down. That's Sorka points. Knees down. Knees up.
Down.
Knees up. Brad, can you? Because I get this all the time. Because it's a 1/7 scale vehicle in actual scale. But what size action figure is Richie in terms of inches?
Was he a 6 or 7 inch?
Well, 6 inches normally around 110.
Okay.
IU. He's a 7-inch figure. Yep.
Okay. James, where does that leave you in the world of scale drivers? You've taken some stabs at old Tamiya tribute, like that style. How about a much more upright scale figure that will drop right in the sea of the Bushido?
So this is our first. This is Harvey Mushman. Basically,
I've used him in more than trucks than I care to count.
Yeah, Steve McQueen. Fun little story. Steve McQueen, when he became famous, loved racing bikes and cars and everything, but they wouldn't insure him. So his pseudonym was Harvey Mushman. There, he could still race under that name. So this actually is modeled after him for this because of his love of Baja. And then this guy is actually 3D printed in color, so you don't have to paint him.
Wow.
This has been spotty because it's been on and off Shapeways because they've changed the service. They've had it, they've not had it. They said we could print it. They said we couldn't print it. It used to be $30, then it was $130. So you keep an eye out. Every now and again it will come on, but you can get just the gray form from the My Mini Factory set and then paint it yourself. And then
time out. Did you say that figure was printed and not painted?
Correct. Yeah. If you so there's no, this is not painted. It's printed like you print a 2D color picture of a photograph. Yeah. They figured out a way to do that in 3D. So the thing I love about this, and as an ex-skateboarder, the van and the
wow, that's impressive.
And it's got the proper waffle.
Wow, with the waffle bottoms. Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
And this is from 10 years ago. So it's coming like the Star Trek, press the button, things appear and they look like, it's like everything. It takes forever to get there. Then all of a sudden you can do it.
The military's still playing with it. They won't let it go to a civilian folk yet.
No, but we So some of the interiors we've designed for existing molded figures, like the Tamiya Hilux
Yep.
Bruiser driver. So if you've got like a Vanquish interior, it's designed for that. But because everyone keeps asking, we are going to release for the Bushido a 3D printed like generic driver.
Yep.
There's some discussions of different types and so forth, but that will be coming. It won't be available for release because they take a little longer to do, but you will be able to get a 3D printed driver. We don't have to amputate it. It will drop straight in.
Will we be able to maybe cut the head off and put our own head, or are we all going to be stuck with a Brad driver in our Bushido?
Yeah, a little sneak peek to you guys. There may be some heads to choose from.
Nice.
And some of those we'll have some fun with. I'll just say that.
Have a contest. We'll flip coins. Have a contest to see if you can get your head put on a Bushido driver.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great when I post, if you guys share what you want, share what you think, put it in the comments, the usual stuff. But I obviously check everything. We post on Instagram daily, and it's great to hear recos and things you do or don't like.
Right. Not every idea is a good one.
Yep.
And
That's
you'll
correct.
hear about it. Well,
Yeah.
Brad, thank you for the update. You broke the internet during Proline by the Fire with the Bushido release, and it's because you guys collaborating, working behind the scenes, making us all happy and smile and enjoy this hobby again for another year. I think now a lot of people are saying we're going to give it another go next year. Now that the Bushido is here, we'll be back again in 2023. We got something that will make next year fun. James, thank you for all the tech tips and tricks. And the good news is this isn't goodbye. We know you're easy to get a hold of, and it's not goodbye. We'll just see you later.
Yeah, no worries. Love to come back. And I just want to say thanks both to Element and Brad and all the great guys at AE. They're an amazing partner to work with, and I can't do what I do without the help of the other companies. And like you said earlier, we're in a great industry where people are more collaborative than they are competitive. They're separate competitors, but I can't do what I do without them. And Element invest in class in the things we've been able to do together and the way they work with me and the help they give me to help that, you know, I help them, but they help me more than I help them, I think. So kudos to Brad. And as you can see, Brad lives it. There's plenty of companies where the people that run the company don't actually care or know anything about the thing they make. And that cannot be said about all the great guys at AE.
They live, eat, and breathe the hobby, and it shows in the product, and it shows the way when they show up at events. I mean, they're all interested in, and they all say the same thing. We're just RC guys too. So it's a lot better than some president behind a company in it for the money and dumping out red tape and dumb ideas. Not getting anything else.
If you don't know, do some research on AE, and Cliff Lett, the president of AE, is an ex-world champion RC racer, and you know, it's been his lifelong thing. So, and then lastly, I want to thank you guys, because you know, we met at Proline just before I moved, and I knew who you were, and I think what you guys do and give everyone an opportunity for a platform and give us more content to listen to and watch and engage in when we're working on our stuff. Really, really appreciate it. I know it's not easy. Thanks for inviting me on, and thanks for everything you do. Don't stop. And if we can ever help, let me know. Last thing. There is a Rad Show 10 discount. That's 10% discount it's now live. Obviously we hope you use it for the Bushido parts, but I can't do it by parts. So it's just for everything you want to get from Knightcustoms.
Ooh, so you lose, we win.
Yeah, so it's only for limited for the next, it will cover the release, and if you get in quick, we should all be good. I'll make sure it's now we know the actual day. I'll make sure it runs for a week after the Bushido's out. Like I said, follow along on Instagram. You better see how I orientate and print and do everything on the Bushido, and that'll be a fun series to watch.
100%. I'm looking forward to it. So Pete, I know you got a gig at your house. Gentlemen, you talk about what we do. Sometimes it's sacrifice and taking time away from family and making this happen. Pete literally took time away from a party happening right behind that door. Behind him, there is 30 people in his house. Thank you, Pete, for joining us and helping us get coordinated. Brad, thank you for the update. And like I said, this isn't goodbye. It is, we will see you later. And hopefully we can get you all back at the end of the year. We're going to do a big blowout reunion. Some of the guests throughout the year of 2022, we're coming back for a blowout show at the end of the year, sometime in December. There'll be more to come on that, but hopefully we can get you both back here again.
Great.
And I think it was great, you know, having you guys on, you know, seeing a collaboration. I know when we brought Brad on, you know, a lot of positive takeaways, Mike, we had about, you know, hobby shops, a lot of positive things that Brad dropped. And, you know, that's what makes Element what it is. And, you know, it's a respected brand and, you know, it's just got a great vibe about it, you know, and that's why, hence the sweatshirt and, you know, the trucks I own and the OG Element I have that I'll never sell. And I was telling Brad, I was telling James before, you know, I had the Trail Runner and, you know, you always sell a truck and you kick yourself months because the whole truck was outfitted with Knightcustoms and all the way down to the cut in the back bumper. And, you know, I thought to myself going into the show, I was like, you know, that was one truck I should have never sold. But, you know, the positive vibes that Brad dropped last time on the show, you know, just stuck with me throughout the week. And, you know, hopefully it inspired people that watch the show, you know, to support your local hobby shops, support the brands you love and keep the hobby positive. I mean, that's why I'm in it. And, you know, all great, you know, it shows what Element is, you know, and it's great messages. So, you know, you guys keep grinding, doing what you're doing and, you know, make the hobby grow.
Pete
So
and
much.
Brad is doing all of those good vibes and putting all that good messaging with that bowling ball, that ball and chain around his leg. You know, he's got that handicap of John Schultz tying him down, and he's still able to pull off all these good things.
Shots fired.
Tell John we love him.
He knows full well how loved he is. Uncle
All
John.
right, good. Oh, you guys are something else. Thank you.
Thank you
Peter,
for joining.
we'll let you get back to your night there, Pete.
All right.
Farewell from me. Thank you, guys. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
All right, great. Well,
Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
guys for joining. And as always, everybody that's watching, you know, stay tuned. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We just launched our platforms. We'll recap the show tomorrow. We'll post the links out. And for those just tuning in now, rewind the show. Make sure you get the discount code for Knightcustoms. We're looking forward to the Element drop coming up. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.